Oh, this is so exciting. Hi, beautiful people. Ooh, look at all this melanin. Yes. I like it. I'm even showing melanin in my abdomen today. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how much I love my blackness. Amen.
I feel like that needs to be a poem.
Okay. Right?
Oh,
yes.
That was beautiful.
Melanin in my abdomen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a good poem. Well, good morning. Good morning. Well, good afternoon. Lord, what time is it? Okay, well, good afternoon. I am Bozoma St. John. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Endeavor, which is the parent company of IMG, which is, of course, putting on this fantastic New York fashion show. I hope many of you have been enjoying the events of the last few days, and hopefully will be also interacting in lots of the panels and discussions that are planned. But this one, I mean, listen. This is the place to be today. I mean, do you agree? And give a little round of applause for ourselves.
I've already started crying.
All right. And you know why it's so bomb today? Because of these two ladies here, okay? I continue to be inspired by the work they do. Of course, as a marketer, it is always my mission to try and find the narrative in the purpose of a brand. But these two here have built a brand that is born out of purpose. There is no finding it because it is authentically interwoven in the brand. And I could not be prouder of the work that they've done. So, as the founders of Studio 189, which we are all proudly sporting here today. Even my yellow pants. I mean, hello, okay? Yes. Okay, yes. We should just sit like that the whole, no, we shouldn't, okay. Rosario, Dawson, and Abrima, Erwiah. Yay, okay. So we're gonna have a great discussion about the brand, yourselves, your purpose, all of these lovely things that we wanna talk about because we know how important it is to really have purpose-driven work. And again, we're all of us here in this room, I'll speak for everybody, incredibly inspired by what you do. We know what is today, which is 5 years past the initial launch of the brand. But I would like to actually go back to the origin story, given that we all originate from Africa. Hello, okay? Yes, I mean, we could get a little more shout for that. Okay, because we all do, okay? Don't deny it. In any case, the origin of Studio 189 was born out of purpose in a February not so long ago. Can you guys tell us about what started the discussion and how it came to be?
Well, I want to just say it was born here in New York. It was born out of friendship and history. And, you know, New York's a great place for an origin story. Africa's a great place as everyone's origin story. But I just want to say as an origin right here is just solidarity, it's community, it's friendship, and it's wanting to support one another. And it came from that kind of connection and beauty. I want you to start first. I just keep crying because I woke up this morning crying and tearing and it hasn't stopped. And I think it's just turning me emotional. So it's a 5-year anniversary for us, and it's really beautiful.
I mean,
and as
come
you were
on,
just talking about,
this is beautiful.
But also you're talking about purpose and driven and as a brand, but you know, you've been such an incredible champion, and you talk about media and space and communication, and you've been such an incredible ambassador for us. So just to be all in this space right now where it's all about all of us coming together. We're all finding each other in this moment 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later from whatever it is you decided to do. And so it's really, really powerful as we're going to go into that full circle conversation.
Yes.
But it's a really powerful thing to find ourselves here, and you know, as a New Yorker here at New York Fashion Week, being able to talk about what two young women came up with as an idea and then transformed into a community that actually is continuing to actualize it.
Amen. Ooh, I love it.
So thanks for having us.
Yes.
This is really special to us for all the reasons Rosario said. We're huge fans of Bozoma, who's also our sister. But I'm going to tell you a bit about our origin story. So Rosario and I have been friends since we were teenagers. And I am half West African, half American from Ghana.
Hello. Amen.
And from America. My mom is from Mississippi. And I have worked for luxury fashion for a very long time, most recently at Bottega Veneta, which is part of the Kering Group. And I was always really fascinated by the commitment to craft and innovation and quality and the pursuit of excellence. And when I would go visit my family, in other developing countries, I would see so many amazing artisans and craftspeople and creative people doing all this great handwork. And it just seemed like it was really difficult to reach the next level and to rise to another level because people at the time were not traveling there as much, which is now changing. But also, and it's hard for people to leave. It's hard to get visas, immigration, and all these different things. And so it seemed really unfair. And I was having conversations with Rosario, who's been an activist and a philanthropist since she was a child, and trying to figure out how we could bridge the gap and use fashion as an agent of social change, which is our mission. And we didn't really figure it out in the beginning. And so I started doing, volunteer work, but it wasn't enough. And then one year, Rosario invited me to the Congo for the opening of the City of Joy, which is a leadership center under V-Day, which actually just won the Nobel Peace Prize, the project.
Incredible.
The Pansy Project. And when Rosario invited me, she sits on the board of V-Day. I had no idea what I was getting into. I took a leap of faith. It was just a calling. She said, "Do you want to go to the Congo?" And I said yes. And it was crazy. It was a very difficult trip. It was very difficult to get there. And what Rosario and I always say is, through the process of getting the visas and all the no's, we got a lot of no's. Everyone's like, no, you can't get your visa in time. No, you're going to miss the flight, etc. We met all these incredible people that were just helping us get through our journey, and they just wanted to see us get there. And when we got there, we met women that had been through trauma. They had been raped. They had been violated, but they were powerful. They were beautiful. They were resilient. They were strong. They were dancing. They were smiling. And we were like, if you can do this, we can do this. And so we were very inspired by them. And one of the things they would do is they would make crafts. They would make small things. They would take proceeds. They would invest in agriculture. They would farm cassava or different grains or agricultural product. And then they would use the money to send their kids to school or to feed their families. And we saw this really beautiful circle of sustainability that began. And it was when we realized at that time that it wasn't our role to go in top down saying, hey, we have this great idea, we're going to do this thing in Africa or somewhere. But these things were already happening, and it was our responsibility instead to figure out what was happening and to create a space and a platform to connect the dots and to help build a value chain. So we got very, very amped and very excited. And we came back and we were like, this is it. This is what we have to do. We have to make a platform. And so we wrote plans, we wrote business plans, and then went back to our lives. I was living in Italy, working at Bottega. She was living in LA. And then this incredible thing happened, which has never happened. We really believe the universe calls us. The Kering Group has a foundation for women's dignity and rights. And they asked if I wanted to mentor an organization called AfriPads that makes washable sanitary napkins for girls that skip school when they have their period, which is a reason why so many girls don't go to school because they don't have access to sanitary napkins. And I went to the Uganda for this, and I saw a social enterprise. This is a new thing. They didn't really exist. And this means that this is a company that's a company, but it's also existing for philanthropic reasons, but it's run like a company. So they made product that was affordable. The girls could buy it themselves. They would have to make the decision themselves whether or not they wanted to buy it. And that's really, really powerful. It wasn't about giving them something. They had to buy it, but they had to make a choice, a conscious choice to take control of their future. And to watch a young woman make that choice is incredible. And then with the money that's being earned from that, they were creating jobs from young women, local women, and building factories. Now they have a huge factory with all these girls working, and it's like a #1 company in Uganda, and it's continuing to grow, but it's locally owned. And so we saw this incredible circle of sustainability happen. And so in honor of that, when I went back to Ghana, we were like, this is it. This is what we need to do. We need to create Studio 189 February in honor of the 1 Billion Rising campaign, where Eve Ensler said 1 in 3 women will be raped or sexually violated. And she asked for people to take a stance and to dance, and we said fashion could rise. We could be in our bodies, we could celebrate, and we could, instead of focusing on all the negative things and all of those things that happen, instead we could honor the stories of the people that we're creating. So if somebody was in a place where you were sourcing cotton from, they've been protecting the land through wars or diamonds, but instead of focusing on that, let's focus on their work and let's celebrate them. And so we said fashion rising, and that's when we launched in 2013.
I mean, woo. See, Rosario's crying. I'm about to catch the spirit, run around the room. You just over here preaching. I don't know what's going on today. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I think so many of us in this room, and again, I'm speaking for everyone, I hope, which is that the inspiration, that I get in hearing about taking an action when a seeming challenge seems so large, it just seems so big. It's like, oh, well, shouldn't some other huge organization go and do something? Right. We're always looking around like, well, why isn't the Red Cross doing something over there? Or why isn't it? And then to take that initiative and decide, well, I can do something about it. Like, that's an incredible, inspiring origination, because all of us have the power to do that.
And actually, I just want to add, I think I agree with that so much, because that's why you resonate, I think, with so many people, and you resonate with so many people, because when you're in these environments, I think, in certain corporate environments or other environments, and you're looking around for somebody else to do something, and you're, why is it like this, or why am I not getting that, or why, this isn't fair, And then I know I had my awakening that one day where I was like, okay, that's it, enough. Why don't I do it? What am I doing? Like, what's my position in this? How can I impact change? Who am I pointing the finger at? And then realizing that it wasn't just me, that there was lots of us that could do something. And to me, that's why this kind of thing is really powerful. And watching the work that you do and that other people, Mindy and other people in this room do, where they just made the choice to, whether they're in the environment they work in or creating a new environment, but to just be in their own selves, right? Like in their own bodies.
And to celebrate the things that we're taught that we sometimes don't realize we're being taught. Just my grandmother raising 5 kids on her own, and, if it meant that she was just existing off of coffee so she could feed her kids, she did it, but she did it with grace, and she did it with dignity, and she did it with purpose and conviction and commitment. Her mother worked for the Ladies International Garment Workers Union, and I grew up with stories that it was always a funny story about how my mom would come home and she was wearing the styling new high-waisted, flare pants, because her grandmother was a seamstress, but at the same time she'd go home, and because, they didn't have a lot of means, she'd match the pillowcases and the curtains and whatever material grandma could get, and it was always a sort of funny story. But for me, it was going, here's this woman who barely speaks English, who's able to make a profound impact on her family. And in the story of women raising children on their own and not having husbands, especially at that time, and how just society really pushed back on them when they were just trying to be more than just survivors, and just how the difficulties of it all. But recognizing I'm here today because of all of those sacrifices and that courage to stand up in the face of it and not just go, it sucks, it doesn't work, it's not, it's not going to be good enough. It's like, well, it'll be good enough. It will be good enough, and it'll be that much better the next day. And just that, the pride that comes with it. Like, I came from very proud family members, regardless if stature-wise they held up societally. And so that, for me, was, I think, what was so touching, and why we mentioned especially, it was, there's a major snowstorm, airports were being shut down. We drive off to Philly to jump on the last flight. And it really is significant, though, those angels of people going, no, the airports are shutting. There's no more flights. No. And someone going, where are you going? We're trying to go to Congo. You're trying to go to Congo? Come here, let me try to help you out. And we talk about those angels a lot because it was more than just us getting to that trip. It was getting to this point 5 years later here, because that trip inspired so much and reconnected us to our family history, because there was no difference from the women that we were seeing dancing and celebrating and creating in the Congo, except the fact that we just happened to be born in different places with different opportunities. But here we all found ourselves together in the same space. somehow, some way, and that's significant. And we sometimes forget to recognize those significant moments, what it really means just to all be in the same room together, and what could spark from that. And so it was our friendship, and then recognizing, going and being with Eve, and Eve inviting us over, and then, she's like, I'm going to work with the UN here because we have to, but I want to work on the ground. And here's this issue of mining and rape and war that we read about that just seems so impossible. But she goes, let's just start here. And with these women building and designing and creating. And now 1,000 graduates later, there's a profound impact on the ground. It started small, but it ripples. And we are part of that wave of ripples of people who've been not playing nice and not just keeping calm seas, but really making some splashes. And it's just really powerful to continue to be in that history and pass it on.
Oh, Laura, okay. I had high expectations for this conversation, but now I find myself speechless. I'm like, I think they picked the wrong moderator. I can't do this. Somebody else want to get up here? Because it's not going to work out. Oh, the Lord, okay. No, but I'm struck by so much that you're saying, of course, because of the idea of pride and of essentially, wearing that figuratively or literally on your chest, walking with your head held high, chin up, chest out, walking. And I don't find it accidental at all that, we're wearing these Studio 189 shirts that have Ghana, Accra on them. Because to me, the idea that we can be proud of the continent is something that I have always felt and known, but is a sort of new concept in how people are embracing the continent as a place of wealth in all kinds of ways. That it was certainly acknowledged 400 years ago in its people and in its minerals and resources. But now to have pride in the work that we are all doing that is connected to the continent is a new thing. And so for me, as I look at what you're doing in the narrative of, creating clothing that says made in Africa versus made in Italy or made in France or made wherever else, and find pride in wearing that thing, I'm proud to wear this. And I'm proud to have that label. What does that mean for you? Like, how significant is that as you look at the work that you're doing and you see folks in the world walking around? Because it's not just about the women that are being empowered, but by all of us who are empowered by wearing these clothes that we know where the source and the purpose comes from. What's the significance for you?
I mean, for me, and also piggybacking off what Rosario was saying, I think that it's really, I'm really fascinated about where things come from. Super fascinated. And there isn't I don't think there are very many stories that you can tell about people, the movement of people, culture, music, art, food, and just our clothes that does not involve Africa. It just isn't, and this place, I really love this idea of, the village or small towns. And I love Italy, and I love that somebody can talk to you about wine for hours, like where the grape comes from. And I went to it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and they watch you drink it, and the grandfather's this, and he had a baby, and he walked, and you're mesmerized, like, wow, I'll give you an extra $20 for the story, and then something happens, or was happening, when you would talk about Africa, and people were negotiating so low that they were actually, the people making it were basically giving it away for free because the price was too low. But yet, if you look at your phone or you look at your clothes, somewhere down the line, what you are wearing or eating came from there, And so to us, I think because we're getting to this place where, like in a bigger way, I always say, like, we think, the 50s, 60s was a period of a lot of change, and people, Ghana had independence in 1957. We had the civil rights movement. So many people were pushing change but didn't have the tools to realize their dreams. They had ideas and they pushed those forward. But now we have the tools, all over the world in various developing economies to make our dreams come true through the internet, through our education, through technology, through connectivity, and through platforms. And I think with that comes this place where we don't have to see all these differences anymore. We don't need this, like, these mysterious people somewhere making something and we don't know who they are, and we're consumers on this side. You know, we're all the same, you know, like, and I think a huge part of what Studio 189 is trying to do is change that narrative. You know, like, the reason we put Ghana on our shirts like that is because we want to change that narrative. We want you to look at Ghana or Nigeria or wherever, you know, look at any place, Zambia, you know, any place, Sierra Leone, whatever, anywhere, but in a way with dignity, you know, because honoring those people that made those things, you know, and you can also honor those people in America that made those things, but it doesn't have to be one is better than the other. Why can't we just all be great, you know? And so a huge part of our mission is connecting, like from a sustainability perspective, is connecting the dots between the consumer and the producer by empowering the producer to understand they have value, but also empowering the consumer to understand that they're a part of that chain and they have value. And every time they make a choice of where they want to spend their money, they're deciding what kind of world they want to live in. You know, like when you think about, you know, sustainability metrics, whether it's the environment or whether it's, you know, education or whether it's women's rights or et cetera, you know, every item took something, you know. So if you bought just like small things, like for example, if you bought a t-shirt takes 2,100 liters of drinking water to make. You know, that's 2 years of drinking water for somebody. So at some point, somebody is going to have to decide whether or not they have access to water or if they really needed another $2.99 t-shirt. You know, like, so the question is, it's not that there's anything wrong with if you want that t-shirt, go ahead and buy it, but buy it because you love it and because it has purpose. And so for us, we want, when you make a choice that has purpose, because then you change the narrative. By virtue of doing that, you impact climate change. You impact access to education for somebody. You give somebody the opportunity to have a job, you know, like a job somewhere that's worth it. Like even things like when it comes to fashion that people don't think about is even, you know, dyes. You know, like if you buy something, when they're dyeing it, if they're not using the right materials, somewhere in somebody's village, those dyes are sitting in their water supply. So they're drinking that because they don't have a choice. But it's not just them that's drinking that. Their animals might be drinking that. And then somebody is cutting up an animal and shipping it somewhere, and you might be eating that. You know, so you're not, we think we're disconnected from the supply chain, but we're in the supply chain. And it's so wonderful because we can also impact the supply chain. And if somebody, and we believe that to be true with the work that we do, you know, if somebody buys something, you know, and you know that somewhere somebody made it with love, you know, like you wear that and you wear that love, you know, and you feel proud about that love. And then you're proud to wear that thing that says, you know, made in Ghana. And it's cool to know that the pants Bozoma is wearing is the organic pants. So the cotton it's actually cotton that's grown in Burkina Faso. You know, it's cotton and then it's milled and turned into yarn. It's dyed locally. And then it's woven on a loom, and then we put it on a bus to Accra, to our factory that we set up with the United Nations several years ago, Ethical Fashion Initiative, and it becomes pants. And that's pretty, I think it's pretty cool.
I mean, should I just stand up so you can see the pants? Because, I should twirl. Okay, yeah. Right? Hello, thank you very much. And you can look good and do good. Amen.
But that's what I love about, you know, education and information. You know, I think we've been doing that really well with food and starting to recognize, kids were starting to get to the point where they couldn't recognize a tomato or where it came from. It became so disassociated from nature and natural to just this thing in plastic that they buy. Well, food comes from the store, not from the earth. And we've, you know, the value that's lost there and the connection that's lost to our spirit and our connection to sacred, and seeing how that's transformed, and people can tell the difference. You can tell the difference between something that has a bunch of chemicals on it and is, you know, made from some weird Terminator seed that doesn't have, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell, versus something that's organic and locally grown and really healthy and seasonal and all these different things. And it's the same thing with our clothing. You know, it's not that it's just some random thing that's being made somewhere and it just magically poofs up in front of you. Someone made it. Someone put energy into it, and how did that impact their lives? And so just having that story and that history and that connection, there's so many different ways upon which that gives you value, you know, in your own life. Knowing that you're voting with your dollar for something that actually stands in commitment to your integrity and the things that you value. And having the opportunity and access to do it, because unfortunately so much of what is sustainable is too expensive. And that was something that we wanted to expand, that it wasn't inclusive of a lot of the communities. We wanted to expand that conversation. And it's important to be able to say Ghana made in Africa. When you look at something made in Italy, you don't even recognize the brand. But you automatically appreciate the value.
That's right.
And that's been given to you by years and years and years of storytelling that has existed long since before we got here. And when you see something made in Africa, you think charity, you think craft, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But somehow that's the story. Excuse me. So it's, when we were, and I know we're going to get into this, this is the year of return. The Ghanaian president was like, this is the 400-year anniversary of this exodus of talent and resource and people and community that has gone all around the world and brought value other places.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, let's get the sister circle.
Yeah. But, you think about that, like, when, you see all these different companies and stuff, and they're like, we make the best chocolate.
Right. No, you don't.
And it's made in Europe or somewhere, and you're like, yeah, but it wasn't, like, the value was put someplace else. The cotton was taken out, the people were taken out, the minerals, the coltan, the tungsten, and the tin, the shea butter, the coconut, everything was taken out, and then someone else put their name and brand on it, and Italy and Brussels and everybody else gets to go see we did this great thing. And it's really powerful to be in this full circle conversation of just going, all of these value, all of these people, all of these resources, all of this community, all of this history and ancestry was supposed to be forgotten and never to be, built upon. And now, but we're coming full circle and going, no, we're reclaiming that story and seeing that this value that has gone out onto the rest of the world can be brought back. And because of bringing it back, it's more than just, it's nice to get back to your roots. There were some really powerful things that were said on our trip. We just went on this trip that you and Boris Kojo and Nicole Ari Parker put together of just bringing, African Americans and people back. It's more than just here, but bringing people back as the year of return to Ghana and to come back to Africa. And one of the conversations and things that kept being brought up is, you have people who are studying Mandarin right now in college because there's an understanding that China is important and powerful, and there's a respect that's there. But when you bring up Africa, that same energy doesn't get brought to the table. And that has a detrimental effect in many different ways. It impacts companies, it impacts people, it impacts all kinds of opportunities because you don't see the inherent value there. And so it's really important for us to change that story. As a Latina, I'm Afro-Cubana, from Puerto Rico, the amount of self-hatred within my own family and denial and racism that's there is just unfathomable. And it's like, well, clearly you haven't been to Africa because otherwise you'd be mad proud. I don't even know how else to say it. It's so powerful. And everyone else has a connection to their history. If you're from Israel, if you're from Italy, if you're from China, you go back home. And that's a beautiful thing to imagine. Even if you've never been there, you don't speak the language, you're going, I'm 30, I'm 40, I've made the decision to go back to my roots. But you don't see that necessarily with Africa, and that needs to change. And by just continuing, in so many ways, just to impact our company, but just to impact the story of our ancestry and transform a continent for the better, and that's been mischaracterized, in so many ways impacted all of us in a way that you just can't even fathom. Like, it's just to seeing these past 5 years when we first started our company and we're trying to get people to come out and we're talking about Ghana, and then Ebola hits and all these different things, and people are like, what are you talking about? And then crazily, then a few years later, Black Panther's out and all this other thing, and there's this renaissance again. And it's just so fascinating just to watch how quickly, a hashtag trending suddenly just completely transforms people's perception of something. And that is really critically important because that impacts so many people down the line. And we just want to bring visibility to that. It's not just brands. It's not just certain kind of ideas around sustainability or promoting of Africa. It all kind of connects to each other in a way that's going to have a resonance that goes way beyond us. And for me, is just about honoring all of the ancestry that came before me that struggled so hard to get to a place where they could just feel like they could walk down the street without getting attacked. Like we got to be beyond just trying to survive and really make an impact and a ripple effect, because those types of things, just like eating better, buying, consuming in any way better. What are you putting on your body? What are you putting in your body? What are you supporting? What is that connection, your relationship in this world, and how are you leaving it? Are you leaving it? It is what it is, but there's a way that even in your small purchases or your small conversations can make a ripple effect that you have no idea. The people that we've met, the stories that we've done, people buying something or coming to an event or a talk, and then they go, you know what, I actually hadn't been back to, Sierra Leone, and I saw you at a talk, and so it inspired me to do X, Y, Z. I mean, we had, I'm thinking of that guy who came to us in Florida.
We do this, we go to Miami every year for Art Basel with the Surf Lodge, and we met somebody like in the middle of the night, really, coming back from a club, really.
Tell us that story.
It was a lobby hotel situation, late night, trying to get snacks.
The conversation turned.
My point being, it could happen at any time.
but
you
it's-
have no idea.
We were talking about sustainability in more than one way.
And this gentleman, I think I was holding a box that said Rosario Dawson. I think like sneakers, and it said Rosario Dawson. And he thought he was being funny. He's like, "Are you Rosario Dawson?" I said, "Yeah." "No, she's right there." And he thought, I'm making jokes. And then she rolls up behind me, and he goes, "Oh my God, oh my God,
pizza,
oh my God."
Was that all he was trying to get, girl?
And he's from Uganda, and we were like, "No, seriously, let us tell you our story." And he was just like, so floored and so inspired that the next day he started researching tickets. He bought a ticket to go back a week later and started an organization that supports providing free healthcare in villages across Uganda, and they do it every month, and they've provided so much, like I think 500 people a month per village, and they've done this incredible work, and now he's there going back and forth, and he's using whatever means he has. He wrote us this incredible letter, and he said, when I saw you, I realized, I kept thinking, like you were saying at the beginning, somebody else had to do it. I hadn't been back to Uganda in so long. And then I'm looking at you and these two young women, I'm like, you did it. And you're talking about doing it with very little means, and you just went ahead and did it. If you can do it, why can't I do it? What excuse am I making? And then he did it, and now he's created this like powerful, story. But it's not just a story, to what you were saying, it's action. I think what's so special about the moment we're living in right now, and in the conversation of sustainability and fashion and Africa, is that people are actually doing real work. They're not talking about the work, they're doing real work. They're creating real businesses, real organizations, and they're doing it at the localist level, and everybody seems to be participating and taking note and wanting to participate, to grow together. And for us, it feels really special because, like, what Rosario's saying at the beginning, people were just like, is this Rosario's charity? Is this Rosario's charity? You're like, what do you, they desperately wanted, it to be about Rosario. And that's why I really love Rosario, because she pushed back, wanting it to be about her going to Africa, picking up a baby, taking a picture, doing some press, like seriously, doing some press, making the things in China and then slapping a thing on it, and like we all get rich. And we were like, that's just not what we're doing here. That's not going to happen. It's not what this is about. And they just were like, what are you talking about? Like, you've lost your mind, you don't have a good business. And we were like, no, people are doing real work. And so it takes time, to really build the infrastructure. And then Rosario, really had to say, that's not what this is. I'm putting myself back. It's about the people. It's about the artisans. And also, we wanted to change the way people think about Africa, because people always think it has to look like me, and it looks like so many people. So many people have a relationship with Africa. We have one with Indonesia, with India, with everywhere, East Africa, West. And it needs to be an inclusive conversation that includes everybody, because we all came from there, and we all touched from there. And that's what we're trying to do with Studio 189. And the fact that we did go back this December as a community was so powerful for us, because when we started, we really didn't know. We had ideas, but we didn't know. And it felt important, and it felt like the universe was calling us, but it felt still smaller, and it was smaller. And, to see the growth and to see all these people here and to go back with so many people who have all these amazing ideas and who can put them into action, and to see it starting to really happen. When we went to the castle, a lot of, I don't know how many people know the history, but a lot of people were transported out of dungeons that are called slave castles across Ghana and other places in West Africa. And we went on this incredible journey together, led by Bozoma, and we passed back. There was a door of no return. You were supposed to go and never come back. And we walked back through, because this is the year of return. This is the year that we're all invited back. And, to see the people light up, and to see the emotion, and to see, people with possibilities. And then the last day, Bozoma did a roundtable, and she didn't just let everybody take a bunch of social media pictures. She said, "What are you going to do?" She made everybody make commitments. She said, "And what are you going to do?" And then, "What are you going to do?" And everybody had to make a commitment on, why are they here, and what are they going to do, and what are they going to do next year? Because that's what this is. Right now, this moment feels like it's about, taking action and doing, and that's what's so powerful.
Oh, gosh, I'm telling you. Woo. Well, for all of this work and for, your continued commitment, I don't think it's any accident, but certainly celebrated that in 2018 you won the CFDA award for the Fashion Initiative, which is based on sustainability. So prestigious, but also done out of something so purposeful. And I just continue to be so incredibly proud of you. And again, to the thought that, we all can make a difference, really. It's not just a pithy thing to say. I'm so glad that you both, joined the group tour and the group trip to Ghana, even though you had your own purpose for being there, but joined in because, for me, I think the narrative that we're all creating is so important, and all of us do have a role. All of us can do something different. For me, it was quite simply inviting friends to come along. People said all the time, "That seems so far away. I'm not quite sure how to get there." I'm like, there's a direct trip from JFK. It's freaking 8 hours, man. You'll be in Accra, no problem. But it was incredible to me that over 100 people said yes, over the holidays, and said they would come. And that was me and Boris picking up the phone and just calling people and saying, "Hey, you want to go with us to Africa? You want to go to Ghana for New Year's? Because it's going to be bomb." There's champagne there too. And the fact that, even, again, just to, you don't always need somebody to validate. But I do love the fact that last year on CNN's most traveled, or most, the country's most worthy of travel, Ghana was number 98, and this year's number 4, based on the trip. So just knowing that this is not just about us on the stage, of course, I hope the inspiration, knowing that each of us are capable of changing a narrative, of doing something purposeful, of doing something that you actually love and make it purposeful. That it's not even just about oh my gosh, what am I doing myself? There's not, this is not worthy of anybody's time. No, it probably is. It definitely is. So what is the purpose then in the things that you're doing? I think on that note, we'd love to open it up to some questions from anyone in the audience. If you would like to, let's see. Ivan Bart. Can we give a round of applause for Ivan Bart, who's the president of IMG Fashion? And actually, before he even says anything, I want you to know, okay, that this man, I've been a part of Endeavor for 6 months now, so I'm relatively new. Ivan was one of the first people I met. And I was first of all, he wore a tux to our first meeting, so that tells you something. But also the fact that he personally is so committed to diversity and inclusion, not just on the runway, but behind it, that he is championing all kinds of diversity in ethnicity and in size and in ability and everything. So I am so honored to work with you, Ivan, and thank you so much for coming and supporting here today.
No, thank you. And I only have one issue to take with you. Where's my invite? Where was my invite? I kept looking and having FOMO about, what was going on Christmas. And I'm like, I want to go to Ghana. Now I really want to go to Ghana, big time. So first of all, thank you both for coming. I'm sorry for my voice. both of you so articulate, and I'm just amazed about what you're doing. And I do want to ask the question to Rosario, not because you're the celebrity in that in this great operation, but because you're a celebrity. Explain how you have the time with your day job because everything that, to actually win the CFDA award, to be recognized in fashion, to be doing something you do is not like easy. So many of us don't do things because we go, I don't have the time. How are you able to balance your day job with what you're doing?
Well, and again, I think that because it is a communal question, is, I've been really blessed to be a part of some incredible projects. Everything from, I co-founded a voting organization in 2004 called Voto Latino, who, our very first executive director, Maria Teresa Peterson at the time, who's now Kumar, is now our president and CEO of the company. Abrima is the one who actually speaks multiple languages and went to NYU Stern and can actually do a business plan. She's creative and business. She's just like in a suit and partying. You know what I mean? Like, it's all of it. And so, and when we think about, it's our relationship with the consumer that makes it possible for us to keep growing. It's the relationships that we built in the other parts of our work that gave us support when we needed it, when we were first starting off. It's leveraging relationships with the UN so we could actually develop a factory. Now we're working with the CFDA so we can, not only continue our conversation of how we're working with sustainability, but gain access to materials and things we otherwise might not have been able to play with before, that just helps all of us to continue to grow forward. And I have to say that's been one of the more powerful moments about especially sustainability in fashion, because fashion's the second largest polluter in the world, and it needs a radical shift and change. And it's not just a nice thing that some consumers like to support. It's that, no, we need that for the betterment of humanity and the world. And so it's been remarkable to see how many people have come on board. But it always just starts off with those first relationships. And the whole thing doesn't happen without Abrima. It doesn't happen without our family, who've been supportive. And it doesn't, it's never one person or one thing that makes something, I think, fail or succeed. And I think that's where we get stuck on doing something, is because we do think the full onus is on us. But honestly, no one does anything on their own, like, ever. We're a completely interconnected society. I mean, we're only 10% human cells, so even in that, like, we're just constantly moving, and we're in collaboration. We just don't always recognize it. And because we don't recognize it, we don't build on it, and we don't push it, and we don't challenge it. And so that's been a big part of it. Is, for me, I think the thing that I've been the strongest at in our relationship, besides leveraging certain, other relationships and partners and things that we could work with, access to media and things that otherwise we might not have been able to have, is really just the support and love and commitment to each other of going, we're doing this. Because it was believing in our conversation before it was a conversation that anybody else either laughed at or leaned in to hear more of, And so I think it's more just kind of rolling with those punches. And, when one of us is going off the cliff, the other one pulls us back on and goes, no, we're doing this, because we're doing it still on our own. We don't have other investors coming in or doing any other stuff, because we just knew it would corrupt the vision, because it's a very particular vision of what we're doing. And every other kind of brand or things that we see out there, there's something that's lost, because the purpose for this isn't just to be some wildly successful fashion brand. If we wanted to do that, we might have done things a little differently if that was what our main goal was. It's a much bigger, kind of more sacred goal for us. And so I think it's really our friendship that's the reason why this is where we are. It's friendship, it's love, it's unconditional love, and it's support that makes it possible. And I think that's what makes anything possible in our lives. If we show up with that, it's things that seem insurmountable can be bested. Oh, yes. So, I love her. So.
Hi, my name is Lillian Daniels. Love you guys. My question was about storytelling. From your perspective, thank you so much for sticking out, putting a pinpoint on we all have a story and digging deeper into it with respect to Africa. My question would be, what would be your one pointer in storytelling? And as a marketer, and having seen everything, whether from Pepsi all the way to now, what do you think is the one key thing when you're storytelling as a brand? And my interest comes from running the Bali Beat. But yeah, I wanted to know. And thank you guys.
You guys start. That's for you. She knows me. She was asking me.
Okay, clarify the question a little bit more for me.
What is the one point that you think...
That's what it was, because it was 1 point. That's why I always get lost on stuff like that. But go ahead. What do you say?
One point is storytelling if you're trying to make your brand successful, especially if you're trying to put purpose behind it and you have a specific...
As advice or yes, okay, sorry, that's what I'm not getting. I think it has to be authentic. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It has to be honest. It has to really, and it has to resonate with you. You know, you can't go around telling a story. I mean, I'm an actor and I love telling stories that are not necessarily my own, but that's actually more challenging than it seems. And I've watched people struggle with trying to sell stories that they don't believe in. And they aren't actually moved by. And I can guarantee for, people go, were you able to be so emotional, in this scene? And it's like, because I was actually moved by it. And so you're connected to it. So I think that's one of the most vital parts and one of the reasons why sometimes when some brands suddenly adopt certain phrases or things and you can see them poaching from what they think is going to work somewhere and it's not sustainable for them because it's not actually authentic to their actual brand and you can immediately poke holes in it. So I think that's just, it's really got to be your story. And that's actually really an exciting thing to learn because as you start to learn your own story, you start to recognize different ways that it moves you so that you can really manage the dips that are bound to come in any business venture.
Yeah, and the same is true as a marketer, that I always tell my teams, it's like, focus group of one. It's like, doesn't matter to me. Like, am I moved by it? Do I find it funny? Do I find it interesting? And if not, then I move on. Because I think oftentimes, especially in big corporate structures, the fear is that, you want to talk to the masses. But the challenge is that when you do that, you lose all the soul. You lose the connectivity and the empathy and the emotion that goes with it. And as a marketer, that's the biggest thing. You're pulling on emotion. You want people to feel something when they're connected to a brand. And so that's the main point of brand storytelling. And I think when it comes to a brand like Studio 189, and that's why I said in the beginning that I love it as a marketer because it already started in the place where you hope most brands start. And when, in fact, it doesn't start from there, at least in my life's work, I interject some soul into that thing, in my own. Because for me, it is that much more important that whatever organization I'm in, Apple, Uber, Pepsi, wherever, that it will never be the same once I've left. Yeah. You have the microphone around there somewhere. I can't see. Oh.
I'll stand. Hi, Debbie Taylor. The thoughts are in my head, so just bear with me. I wanted to ask a question. I know that, this is a panel about fashion as an agent of social change. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how that can be incorporated domestically. So, fashion here, it's a culture, it's a big thing. So I just wanted to know how the fashion industry can incorporate social change here, rather than I find that sometimes it remains a little bit silent more than it should, realizing how big it is and the impact that it can have.
I want to touch that question. Touch it. I think it's actually happening right now. So that's the point that we try to make about when we talk about the value chain. It doesn't have to be obvious. It doesn't have to be, this like big sign that says this is fashion of change. We wouldn't be literally without Judy, without, IMG, Judy, who's over there, didn't have to do this, at all, she didn't, and we did a talk at Dumbo House recently with somebody else who didn't have to do it, a foundation that really wanted us to speak and inspire. And then Judy was like, you have to do this at Fashion Week with IMG. And she invited us to her office and said, you're a part of the IMG family, and she started making things happen for us. And then also I've sat at the CFDA at diversity and inclusion meetings where you've been at and you've spoken, on the topic of diversity and inclusion. And, so to me, I think that it's happening right now. What we're trying to say is that it's happening all the time, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to yell it and you don't have to see it in bright letters. But what you have to do, I think, is being open to the point where you're willing to let it in, So everybody who's could have done anything, it's freezing outside on a Saturday at this time, chose to be here at this moment, at this time, because they care about this topic. So every single person in this room is an opportunity to have domestic social change. So I think that it's less about worrying about, the glitz and glamour, but more about realizing that I think fashion is doing it. I don't think everybody's doing it. I don't think it's happening everywhere all the time, but I believe that it's happening now. I think this is the moment when people are open, and for, women's issues, various inclusivity issues, diversity issues, lots of issues. And I think if you have something that you want to do or just be a part of the conversation, I think this is the time, and I think this is the room, and I think it's happening.
Yeah. But it's so much in what materials you want to use, what story you want to tell, who you want to employ. Are they disabled people? Are they people out of prison? Is it, who you're collaborating with? How are you promoting it? I mean, there's just so many different ways to, I think, join the conversation. I think it's just dip your, just jump in. I think it's about recognizing when you do that there's a really powerful community, and this is something we've noticed quite a lot in the past couple of years, especially around this is the conversation around sustainability and regeneration, that people are really forthright with information about it. Again, because the entire industry has to transform. So it's the one time, which I think especially in fashion can be very competitive, obviously, that there's a real just let down of the guard to just collaborate and figure out how we can expand access to certain yarns and recycled materials, and develop technologies that can help us with water consumption or polluting, recycling, fixing things, it's just upcycling. There's just so much conversation around it now that it was just unheard of before, that people would in higher positions want to share that. But I think that there's just a desire to really shift. So if you start and you start asking certain questions and helping out with people, I think you're going to find that there's a real trajectory to kind of be on top of that just didn't necessarily exist before. But people who are scientists and developers and stuff, engineers who aren't even interested in fashion, are really throwing their hat in the ring, because they're going, oh, I can figure out how you can use the husks from pineapple to get better value, and you can make a leather out of that, and then the farmer gets more money for it, and you're not using more water, and you're not killing. I mean, the ripple effects are so strong. So it's just really fascinating for me, particularly in this moment of just seeing how many people are involved in fashion that you would just never expect. And just how much that's going to be the tipping point that I think is going to take this industry to a new place.
Ooh, take it to a new place. Thank you. Well, the conversation could clearly keep going. I would challenge us that it actually shouldn't stop when we all leave this room, that we continue having the conversation. If you have questions, ask each other. I think that's a beautiful thing for us to continue the dialogue. Ladies, I'm tearful. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for the honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.